Hi, I'm Leah. I'm making a series of videos about how I experience my Asperger's autism, and this one is about self-esteem and some things that I realised through one of my what's called special interests. So, yeah, it can be really easy to feel um, dysfunctional or wrong, or like I have a disorder, something wrong with me, and that can, yeah, from this is my own personal experience, that felt to me like, that led to some self-esteem issues and difficulties. So, anyway, one of my what's called special interests is I'm really interested in other countries, in maps, and indigenous living, tribal living. So I used to watch and still do watch a lot of documentaries, anything that I could find all about indigenous living, and I found a lot of different tribal documentaries online, and yeah, I used to watch even the same ones over and over again, and then find lots of different ones as well. um, what I started to notice was how different the people were living, and also different tribes different to each other, but there were some tribes that I was really particularly noticing had a very different, more really natural way of living. They're all more natural than this way of living, but like some more than others. And I started to notice and feel like, what would it feel like to live in those villages? So I live in a village here, but what would it feel like to live in a village there? And what would my what's called autistic traits be like there? And would they, what would I experience things like if I was there? So one of the things that I noticed personally was executive functioning. So that's, and I'm going to do more videos that go more in depth into this. So this is like an overview video, this one. So there might be some terms that you maybe might not have heard of before, or maybe you're really familiar with them. But anyway, I will be going into those different things in more detail in other videos. But this first one, just to touch on it, executive functioning, that's like doing things in the right order, organizational skills, yeah, without going too deeply into it, things like that. So this causes a lot of problems for me when trying to juggle jobs, when trying to move from one job to another, trying to focus on things, trying to yeah, keep moving through different jobs to get all these different things done. And what I noticed was is that here, and yeah, this way of living, it's just like small households, and then this huge amount of jobs to get done every day, just the amount of things to try and do that you're just juggling, either as a single person, as a couple, as a small family, but with their adults being in charge of those jobs mainly, or fully, depending on how old the kids are. So it just seems like there's a huge amount of things to get done, whereas noticing on the tribal documentaries I was seeing, and still I'm seeing, that this is like things like a whole village would be coming together to do these things, and there just didn't seem from what I was seeing that there was so much of this juggling, like just loads of different jobs in a day. um yeah, so it just feels here like there's just like so much to have to focus on and change and keep juggling. Yeah. And then another thing that I noticed, sensory overload. And yeah, I have already done a video about this, going into more detail about sensory overload. So that's on my YouTube and on Instagram as well. Oh no, actually part of it's on Instagram. You can see the full video on my YouTube, Leah Wild Creative. So yeah, things like, the kind of sounds and noises that can feel difficult to me here, things like electrical appliances, even just like a fridge. It's not designed to be there to make a noise like a stereo, but the noise of the fridge, the noise of the fan on the computer, all kinds of like that kind of noise, quite distant sounds. Even the radio, I don't know if other people notice this, but even if the radio is plugged in and switched on at the plug but not actually switched on, it makes like a crackle, so it does make a sound that I can hear that's very disturbing. If I switch that off, it's like a huge amount of noise suddenly stops. So things like that, electrical noises, traffic, and then just generally everything really being quite overwhelming and overstimulating. Whereas, of course, you know, in indigenous places, indigenous communities, and out in the wilds, of course, there's lots of bird song and maybe animal noises and things like that, insect noises and stuff, but it's just more natural sounds. Now, I live in the countryside, and it can be quite noisy, you know, with the animals, and you can hear some of them now, the animals and the birds and things. But it doesn't disturb me in the same way as a lot of the noises that do. And of course, this is again my own personal experience. That's how it feels to me. So yeah, and then sensory overload, you know, that can really lead to feeling quite shut down, and yeah, wanting to zone out, the overwhelm of everything, and or even meltdowns. And I haven't gone into any of this with any other videos yet, but I will do. The next one that I noticed was socially. So this is a big difficulty. And I really have noticed in indigenous communities, and again, I'm not generalizing like all of them, but like certainly like some of them that I was seeing on documentaries, it seemed like people were very straight to the point, very, very honest, very, very clear. And that can be something that a lot of autistic people really struggle with on both ends, like maybe being seen as too direct, or needing things to be really direct, and that being seen as something that could be seen as negative. But actually, it's like that actually feels positive to me if somebody's really, really direct, or for me to be really, really direct and honest and truthful. It just feels clear, in it just feels like there's not, I don't know how to put it into words, but yeah, I was just really noticing that there seemed to be a lot more simple, clear communication, really truthful, really honest. And it seems like that would be necessary to keep a really nice atmosphere. I mean, done in a very a certain way, you know, like just a certain understanding between the people, that it seemed like there's a real sort of a need for that, to keep the tribe together and keep everything working and for everything to function properly, because it's basically, you know, like a bigger version of a family. So we each live with our small families, but this, you know, tribal village is like a just much bigger family, all living together, or in a village setting. Yeah, so it just seemed like, you know, they found that, you know, that or just always done it like that, that's the best way to function together as a big family and get jobs done and go about life. And yeah, that's definitely something that I feel I really need, is real clear communication, truth and honesty, so that I know where I am, I know where I stand, I understand the rules, I understand the, you know, or I've got a say in things, so I understand what it is that I'm agreeing to, or, you know, I'm not going to go into it very deeply right now because I want to just do this as an overview video. The next one that I noticed was relating to my hyper focusing, and it seemed like that. So hyper focusing is like, you know, to get really, really absorbed into one job, and that can be really difficult when you're supposed to be juggling lots of jobs in a small household. Sorry, the shadows are a bit the sun's over there, so I'm trying to keep still. Yeah, so that can be difficult here, like to you know, where, you know, not just in my house, but, you know, like just in general in this way of living, that we have to juggle jobs. But the hyper focusing thing would be to really focus on one job and really, really, yeah, plow through it, getting it done, doing it with good detail and attention. And I'm really, really good at doing that. And I love it when I'm able to do that. And I've got jobs that I can really do that with. Um, and I can be really, really efficient with things like that. Now, that seems like a really big, like it would be a really big asset, I think, you know, living in an Indigenous community, in an Indigenous village setting, you know, where you've got somebody who would just be weaving a roof all day, you know, that's like a big job. And to get that roof done before the weather changes or however it goes, you know, to really focus in on that job and really get that done. And I think I'd be a good roof weaver. I like weaving. So I'd be able to really, really focus in on something like that. And then maybe somebody else would be a fire keeper, and just be in charge of really keeping the fire going, and maybe a few little bits and bobs around that. And then somebody who goes and collects wood, or a couple of people that go and collect wood. And, you know, these things take time and they're big, long jobs, some of them. Or doing, you know, going to gather food and collect things, and or processing the, you know, if they collected a root or something like manioc or something, and then processing that, you know, these are big jobs to really get stuck into. So the hyper focusing would seem like a really good thing in that setting. And of course, I try to really use that asset in my life and do that. But I just noticed that as something, you know, uh, as something that would be really, really great in that setting as well. The other thing that I noticed was I was really put some thought into crowded spaces. So I feel quite uncomfortable going into cities, and I actually do like some things about cities, but I find it very uncomfortable to go there because of just quite huge crowds of people, lots and lots of people everywhere. And I thought, well, that probably would feel quite strange, really, because, you know, in an indigenous setting, you would only have those people around you mostly who you have literally been born around and grown up around, and you know everyone and you know the feeling of everyone to be around. And to go into a city and all these people and no one knows each other, and it just feels quite strange to me. So, you know, kind of, yeah, I just really noticed that as a difference. Um, and then the last one was I have a lot of food sensitivities and food intolerances. Like I can really feel it, like my brain really shut down when I have certain things, more so. So that can hinder my function even more, if I eat certain things or drink certain things and stuff, or sometimes environmental things as well. Um, and if I've been on the computer too long, I can really, really feel that physically. And yeah, I was just really thinking about that as well. Just even in our own recent history, I saw I don't know if it's called a meme, I'm not sure. I think it might be called a meme, but I saw this little thing going around a long time ago, where it said, and this is relating to things that are, you know, more synthetic and not natural. I saw this thing going around saying organic veg, or as our great grandparents used to call it, veg. You know, and I just thought, yeah, that's like, you know, things have changed so much in such a short time. Um, you know, that's really, yeah, I just thought, well, you know, is it a something, a dysfunction in me that I'm struggle to deal with those certain things in my body, or those certain environmental things. It just felt interesting to me. So it, by looking at those things, it did really help me, and it does still really help me, with self-esteem issues, because I just think to myself, you know, well, there is actually quite a lot that we have to deal with in this way of life. And there's yeah, it just gave me some things to think about after watching the documentaries, and I just thought I'd share that in case that's useful or helpful to anyone else who might be feeling like, oh gosh, you know, everyone seems to cope really, really well, and I really struggle with this and this and this. And I just thought, well, are we actually meant to really there are other ways of life where we wouldn't be dealing with those things at all, like, and the things that might be seen as difficulties would be seen as assets. And yeah, I just thought that was a nicer way for me to think about it. And then also helped me as well to find some tools to use in my own daily life to try and change things or make things easier for myself, which I will share in other videos. Some things that I found that have really, really helped. But yeah, I just wanted to do a quick overview video of that, and put that out there, and I'll come back to some of these things in, on their own as their own videos. If you, and of course, even this might not even always relate to autism. It might just be, like some people might just relate to some of those things anyway that are not autistic. They might really relate to some things, and that might be of use. So I just like to share anything that might be helpful to someone or of use with that. So yeah, if you found it useful, or you think that anyone that might be helpful to, feel free to share it. And if you pop a like on it, it does help to make it more visible to others. So it just shows up on the feeds more and shows up more. So yeah, that would be really helpful to anyone that might benefit from it. And yeah, I'll make more videos soon. And if you're watching, yeah, actually you won't be watching on Instagram because it's too long, so you'll be watching on YouTube by now. So yeah, thank you very much. Bye.